Got it, boys. Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another video. Welcome back to Monster Hunter World, and today is the day that Kulve Taroth is going to be leaving us. Now, this doesn't mean that she's never going to come back, because she most definitely will at a later date. However, it also means that if there are materials that you are desperately looking for, or loot drops that you really want to get, today is going to be the final day for quite some time in which you can get them. Therefore, if you need to get your grind on today, and hopefully you will get whatever it is that you're looking for. Now, I've been looking for the Facebuster bomber, as you guys are no doubt aware, because it is one of the Gunlances available from Kulve Taroth, and it is one of the few Gunlances in the game right now that has wide shelling type level 4. And I say one of the few because you actually cannot craft gun lances that have wide shelling level 4 through conventional means. You can only get them as drops from Kulve Taroth, making them quite the rarity, at least in my opinion, because I know that a lot of people have gotten this weapon. It took a very long time for me to get it. But today, Kulve Taroth, on her last day of the event, saw fit to grace me with the Facebuster bomber. And as you guys can imagine, the second I got that particular gun lance, I was like, well, time to make a build all around wide shelling type. And this is something that I hadn't worked on before, specifically because you couldn't get wide shelling level 4. And that was very frustrating for me, because I was always like, well, I can always do better Wyvern's fires with other gun lances, so I don't know, I was always confused by that. And it's also one of the reasons why I've always wanted a wide shelling level 4 gun lance, so that I would have the motivation to actually make a build around it. Now, what really surprised me is just how effective wide shelling can be with you just shelling a monster to death. Like, I'm talking not using pretty much anything else other than shells, Wyvern fire, as well as worm stake. And not only it was a very satisfying way to play, and a very different way for me to play Gunlance, it was also extremely effective. Like, I was really surprised by how effective this was. However, let's get this started. The weapon on this particular build, which I dub the Facebuster, is naturally the Facebuster bomber. However, Facebuster bomber is a rarity 7 weapon. There is a rarity 6 level of this weapon, so just in case you didn't get the specific version that I have, you might have gotten the rarity level 6, and if you did, the rarity level 6 is pretty much as good for this build as the rarity level 7. Now, the main difference is you're not going to have as much damage, and you're not going to be able to rely on your blast element as much. However, considering how little I actually use melee damage while I'm fighting with this particular gun lance, it's not really a big deal, and the sharpness is pretty much the same. So if you have the rarity 6 version of this gun lance, you're fine. You can do this build exactly the same, and it will work. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that when you're talking about gun lances, there's only really one thing that is going to increase the damage of your shelling, and that one thing is artillery. Therefore, all of the other skills that you get, and that means all of the skills that I've gotten on this particular set, are just there as support skills apart from the artillery, because artillery is the only thing that really matters when it comes to damage. So if you want to basically grab this gun lance and do a completely different build from the one that I have, you're still going to be dishing out just as much damage with different levels of utility. As a matter of fact, I have a Heartbreaker version of this build, but I don't really want to show that because you guys kind of know how Heartbreaker kind of works. I wanted to do something a little bit different. So let's get started. So Facebuster bomber is the weapon. Like I said, the most important thing is the shelling type, which is level 4. Now let's get started with the rest of the mixed set, which is the Basal Helm Beta. So naturally, since most of the stuff is going to be utility, I figured I'm going to get myself some sweet earplugs, and that's what we started with. Level 2 earplugs, as well as some sweet decoration slots on there. Basal Helm Beta, definitely a fantastic piece of gear. Then we got the Basal Mail Beta. Now, the reason why I'm getting the Basal Mail is because I'm also going to be getting the Basal Coil for maximum earplugs, and therefore the Basal Mail is going to put us on the Basal Goose protection level, so we're going to be getting that Guts, which essentially is like Feline Moxie. So basically there's a certain threshold which if a monster kills you or tries to kill you and you're at that threshold, you don't die. It's basically something that prevents you from getting one shot, which is pretty damn useful in my opinion. And to top it off, the Basal Mail also comes with Guard, which is a skill that I wanted to get up to level 3 for this particular set, and therefore it is particularly useful for me. Then we got the Valhazak Braces Beta. Now, the main reason why I have these here is because I wanted to get level 1 decoration slots so that I could put in some specific skills that I needed. And Valhazak Braces Beta is one of the best ones when it comes to that, getting sockets, getting decoration slots as well in your gloves. So that's why we got those. Then we got the Basal Coil Beta, getting the rest of the earplugs, as well as another good decoration slot right there. And then we got the Kushala Cruise Beta, bringing in some Evade Extender. This is going to increase our mobility, which in my opinion is not really mandatory, but it's like I was struggling to figure out what am I going to put on these legs. And I've tried a bunch of different things, and I got to tell you, I really like the Evade Extender because it made the whole build feel a little bit more mobile, and that's why we went with that. And then we'll wrap things up with the Artillery Charm 3, which, like I said, is probably the most important thing when it comes to this particular mixed set, because it is going to max out your damage with your shelling. Now, when it comes to decorations on the Basal Helm, we're going to put in an earplug jewel that is going to bring our earplugs to maximum level. Then we got an Iron Wall jewel, which is going to bring our guard level to 3. And this is important because this is what pushes you over the threshold from slightly decreasing the impact of attacks to greatly decreasing the impact of attacks, which means you can block most things and not really get staggered, and that to me is pretty important because, like I said, I want to be able to stand my ground against monsters with this particular set while I'm shelling them in the face. So the Iron Wall Jewel, definitely a good move there, at least in my opinion. Then we got 2 Sheath Jewels. Now these you can trade in for whatever you want. You don't really need speed sharpening if that is one of your concerns, because on most of my hunts so far, I've only had to sharpen the Gunlance once, because when you go from blue to green, it doesn't really change your shelling damage at all, regardless if you have Feline Bombardier or not. At least in the monsters that I was fighting, it did not change my shelling level at all. So therefore, I didn't really have to worry about that stuff. Then on the Valhazak Braces Beta, we got 3 Medicine Jewels. This is because I'm using health regen on the weapon, and this is going to increase the level of regeneration from that. If you're not using health regen, feel free to socket something else in here. Then we got the Basal Coil Beta, and we put Destroyer Jewels in there. Now, the reason I'm putting Destroyer Jewels in this particular mix set is because whenever you actually break apart for a monster, you can either get him to trip, you can get him to be knocked back, you can basically stagger the monster. And whenever a monster is staggered, that's free time for you to go ahead and shell the ever-living crap out of him, which is the reason why we got Destroyer Jewels in here. Now, you can replace these if you want to. You can put your Guard Up Jewel if that's something that you want to do, because then you'll be able to block everything that the monsters throw at you. If you're struggling with sharpening, which you really shouldn't, but if you're struggling, you can also put a Sharp Jewel in here. Basically, all of this stuff, you can put whatever you want. This was my personal choice. Looking at the finalized build, we got earplugs level 5, recovery up level 5, artillery level 3, guard level 3, part breaker level 2, evade extender level 2, quick sheath level 2, and peak performance. Now, peak performance, like I said, not particularly useful because attack is not really going to dictate how much damage our shelling is going to do, so therefore, you know, it's not essential. But again, most of the stuff in this particular mix set is not essential, but when you put the whole thing together and you go and you just wail on a monster non-stop, trust me, it feels real good. Now, in case you guys are wondering which tools I'm going to be taking out into the field, I think that for most generic hunts, we're talking about Vitality Mantle as well as the Health Booster, because again, we don't really benefit from Affinity or anything of that nature. And for specific fights, I might take some different, like some Valhazak, I'll take Immunity Mantle. In the case of the Teostra that you guys are watching, I took the Fireproof Mantle. But ultimately, this build is just all about shelling. Just like shell monster face non-stop. Facebuster, people! Thank you very much for watching. As per usual, if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell icon, and then click all so that you receive notifications for all of my videos if that is something that you're interested. And I will see you guys in the next one.